All right, I'm gonna get my audio tested. Got a lapel mic. I've already started working on it, but it's an iPhone 12 with no cellular. So it came in, was already restored, so it just had the serial number, no IMEI. So I've already split the board, and I've already scraped some pads. Let me see. So basically, I'm gonna show you how I put the pads on, like the solder lugs. After you scrape out the pads, you want to, I'll go over to the They are from Union Repair, I believe. Or no, I think I might have got these from Mobile Centrics. I think they have them on Mobile Centrics. Yeah, they do. That's the Centrics UPC. So basically, they come with these two little tools. I did try using them, but I prefer to just use my tweezers to hold them because when you use those, the solder sticks to the tool itself too, which isn't ideal. So, but that's what I use. It comes with two little tool things, the pad full of different, there's different sizes and everything. I'll put that under the scope so you can see it better, and it comes with some sandpaper to sharpen the tools if you want. But these are nice. They have all different sizes and stuff. Back Yeah, I don't. I'm not seeing any like background noise filtering. That's too bad. Well, that's too bad. I don't see anything having to do with noise filtering for the background, which kind of stinks. Hmm. Audio filter, noise suppression. I'm not sure what this does. Yeah, well, I'll have to mess with that. But anyways, for now, there's gonna be Alright, so that's been sitting. It should be hard now, all the UV mask. Looks like it is. So now we want to take our blade very lightly. It's really not that dry. Try it again, I guess. So you just want to take your blade and lightly scratch at the UV mask. Obviously, if you feel that it's still wet, take the light again. I feel like the lights lose their efficacy over time. I've only had this for a few months, but it definitely takes. It used to be like 30 seconds and it would be cured. Now it takes 1, 2, 3 minutes. Sometimes I have to do a whole minute cycle like 2 or 3 different times, which definitely isn't good or ideal. I know the lasers work really well. I had one. I'm not sure exactly where it went. Alright, let's try that. Is that any better? Yes. Alright, now it's dry. See, when it flakes away, that's what you want. You don't want it just to push away, you want it to flake. We're just revealing a nice circle so that there's enough to stick to the solder pads on the top board. And that way the UV mask can stay there and hold the rest in place. Scratchy, scratchy. I'm just going super light. The weight of the blade is all you need. You don't have to really push. And also make sure like you get it off the surrounding ones if it went on them. Like these have a little bit on them. These ones are covered on purpose. They were ground pads. There's a little bit of ground showing there. I don't think that's a big deal, but to be safe, I will cover it. Because we don't want to get it all back together and then it doesn't work because it shorted on a stupid little piece like that. It's highly unlikely, but might as well eliminate every variable. Alright, now I'm just rambling because I'm trying to talk the whole time, so my video is not super boring. But yeah, I really like these logs. It's working super good. Once you learn to work with them too, it's much easier. Takes a few times to get used to them. Everybody has their own technique too. Like there's no one right way to do everything. There's different techniques and kind of come to the same outcome with different techniques because every technician's different. As long as it's, not harming the device or counterproductive, then I think it's just fine. Alright, got that one. This one. And if it feels like the UV mask is also like a little too high, just kind of put your blade a little bit flat. And if you feel a bump, just try to get rid of it without scraping the board. So you don't want any areas to sit up higher than the other. That's not what we want. Looks good. That's not one, I don't think. This isn't the right spot. There we go. Just referring to ZXW real quick. That one I was gonna scrape, which I don't know why I felt like it was needed, but it's definitely not. And there's no pad there, so. Trying to make more work for myself. A few more to go. Just kind of getting through them. Make sure there's no high points. That's definitely a high point. There we go. Sometimes it's counterproductive to mask the ground ones, because then you start scraping them because you think there's a pad under there that you need, but that's all right. Trying to get this all smooth, make sure we didn't miss any. Cool. And then we will use our brush and wipe it down. Once more. And I'm going to touch up those small areas. There was like 2 that I just want to quickly put some mask on, and then we're going to test it in the jig. Where was that spot? Right there. Way too much, but that's all right. We're gonna thin it out. In it right out. No big deal. That's good enough. Bada boom. Get that cured. Won't take long. And then we're gonna test it in the jig. So. Alright, one of the cameras is not working, but that's alright. Get the gist. Got the jig. So I love the eye sockets by Keon Lee, and when I got my 12, they didn't actually have them yet, and I wanted to get one. So I got this from Union Repair, and it's Mega Idea, I believe. Is it Mega Idea? Yeah, it's Mega Idea. So, still a really good brand. Works really well. Let's see. So get the bottom board on, and testing in the jig is super important because you don't want to reball everything and get it all back together and have to take it apart again. So I would, if you're doing work on any sandwich board, have the jig for that model. Be prepared. All right, now we're gonna hook up the screen. Charge port. We're just testing, so we're only putting a couple things in for now. And battery. So we just want to make sure that baseband's working, Wi-Fi's working, it's picking up signal from, it should get signal from here with the antenna plugged in. Even without the antenna plugged in, it should get some kind of a signal. Let's see. Not getting much of a signal. That could just be because the antenna's not plugged in. Saying no SIM, so that's good for the IMEI. It's pulling up the IMEI, so we will test it with a SIM card, but baseband's looking good. The only thing that concerns me is the Wi-Fi. It's not picking up anything, but that could be because these are finicky without the antennas. But I'm not sure if that's what it is. Oh, there we go. Boom. Awesome. So it's working. It's working great, actually. It's picking up everything. So that's good. Everything there checks out. Look at all those Wi-Fi networks. And then they disappeared. But that's normal. It's got no antenna plugged in. If you touch the board or whatever, it might actually strengthen it and use you as an antenna, like that. Make sure it connects. It's connected. Try to open Google or something. Pulls up Google. Let's see. Yeah. Pulls up pages. Sweet. That's all good stuff. Sweet. So the final test will be with a SIM card, and then we're going to reball the layers, and I'll show you how I do that. All right, so this is how I reball the 12 series. So this jig right here is for like working on them. It's really nice. It's for working on them. It's only for 12 series, and it's actually really cool because it's also for reballing them. If I can figure out which way it goes, boom. And this one's going to need a 5G antenna resoldered on because it was ripped. This was already previously taken out of the housing and it was ripped. Like so many of them are, and they're a pain to get back on. All right. Stencil looks clean. Super cool, this little jig. We're gonna make sure it's all on there. Perfectly flat, which it's not. There, good enough. So that'll work. So I use XS Max solder paste, Relife brand, and you can get this from Mobile Centrics. I believe it's 138 or 148 degrees Celsius, so it's low melt. And I left it open for a long time so it would dry out, and now it's at the perfect consistency, so I do keep it closed, and I don't have to dry it off or anything. So this method is pretty simple. I have the jig right here with the top, and this one is great for the 12 Pro Max. Any other series of the 12 series that I've tried in it just is horrible. So I only use it for the 12 Pro Max, and then the rest of them I do this way. So use a tool and spread the paste. I kind of do it in sections. So spread it out here and then scrape it off once it's in the hole is good. And then I'll go down the line. I'm gonna try to figure out how to get a better zoom. I don't know how close I can get with this. That should be better. And that's all the way, so. I guess I could do it under the scope too to show you, but this works. I'm just spreading it out. Make sure it gets evenly on every pad. If you see any blank spots, go back and fill it in. You don't want to put too much in either, because then you start having problems. But just enough. You'll eventually just be able to tell what's perfect. And then you go over it, get the excess, put it back in the tube. Okay, then I take a rag, clean room wipe, dip it one time in alcohol, just barely, and then wipe it over. Get every last piece of solder that's on the stencil off. Alright. Get the here ready. Now for this one, I found what I like to do is let it heat itself up and form the balls itself on the preheater. And for that, you need to have the perfect consistency solder paste and the right stencil, and you need to be able to very slowly roll it off like that, and none of the paste stuck to the stencil. So it's all on the board, on the perfect little spots. And I'll put it under the scope so you can see it better. But I just want to show you my method. And then immediately after, so I don't forget, I will clean my stencil. And it's nice too, because then you have no solder balls in your stencil. You just have wet solder you gotta clean out. So it's a lot easier to clean. Boom. All right. And then you gotta be super, well, let me clean this off too. You gotta be really careful when transferring the board to the preheater that you don't touch any of the pads. I usually try to use this screw post. Switch to scope. I'm going to turn the fan on and start the preheater. Preheater's on 180. It doesn't need to be that hot for this, but I just keep it on 180 because it heats up, and then you just take it off when it's done. Once it gets to like 150, 160, usually they're hot enough. So as you can see here, without the stencil, everything stuck very nicely to the pads. We'll really like that stencil. And then you just want to set it on your preheater and let it form the balls by itself. So I'll pause it for now and come back when it's warming up. Alright, now the balls are starting to form, starting to smoke. See, the balls are forming. They're pretty much all formed. There's a couple that aren't yet, but it's doing its thing, working its magic. Pretty much all formed. So at this point, it's at the temperature's at 156. I'm gonna shut the preheater off, and then I'm gonna let it cool down a little bit, and then I'm gonna put some flux on it, and then I'm gonna heat it up again with my hot air really quickly at 300 degrees just to reflow it, get those little micro solder balls out of there. Then we will clean it with a brush and ISO, and then we will put it back on the preheater but not turn the heat on yet. We'll just put it back on it, put a thin layer of flux on it, and then we'll put line the top board up on it until that's perfectly lined up, and then we'll turn on the preheater. We will leave the preheater on until it gets up to temperature and we see the board settle. Sometimes you have to adjust it, but you really don't want to have to touch it at all. You want to just let it do its thing, flow perfectly into place, and then shut it off, let it cool down. So that's what we're going to try to do. Sometimes you got to nudge it a little bit, but sometimes you don't. Alright, that's cool enough to put. You want to make sure that these balls harden before you start putting flux on it, because you can disturb them if you don't. But this is cool enough to where I can put flux on it and not have to worry. So yeah, you only need
just enough for this. So the solder balls look alright, but you can see that they're not totally there's a couple like stragglers off to the sides and things like that you just want to kind of like, just when you reflow the solder balls on a chip that you just reballed, you add a little flux after and then reflow it again. And then I use my hot air for this part just because it's a little quicker and I don't really like to wait for the preheater to warm up again. And I feel like the air helps any little balls that aren't quite in position move into position all the way. That's just what I do. So we're at 300 degrees Celsius, 50 air on my quick. I turn this down. It's saying it's quite loud. I don't want it to be too loud for you guys. See how that does. Alright. Shining up. A couple of them did move. And that's what we want. You don't want to hold it too long. Even though we're only at 300, you don't want to try to focus it outwards, not at the internal chips if you can. Kind of point it out away from the board, from the middle. Trying to keep everything on camera, sorry. Boom. Done. Alright. Now this needs to cool, and then we will clean it up a little. Put the top board on and blow it into place. So I just carefully take it off because it cools quicker. Not sure why the razor decided to stop working. Oh well. Alright. Should be cooled down to where the solder balls are. Whoops. Not gonna move. And then we're gonna clean it really good because the board's about to get sealed up. Scrub it down good with ISO, and then the best thing to do is use a clean room wipe, and then your brush and kind of do it again because it's absorbs all the flux. Well, not all of it, but more than it does if you just spread it around. Looks beautiful. Look at that on the scope real quick. She's gorgeous. Just beautiful, I tell ya. So yeah, nothing's bridged. Perfect amount of solder. Actually, there is one that's bridged. I lied. couple of them kind of look a little shitty still. So overflow it again. Not a big deal. What you want to do is, this time I will turn the preheater back on because it looks like it's not, some of it just needs to be reflown again. Definitely needs to be heated up again. I don't know why it's looking like crap. It's probably because it's on video. It's like every time I make a video, something goes wrong. That's alright though. At least you see like the real uncut. That way you know that things do go wrong. And not to freak out because it's very easily fixable if you don't freak out. Make sure the whole thing's covered. Looks pretty good. I believe that's connected. Alright, those are just hooked together, so that's not really a bridge because they're meant to be. Same with that. So we don't have any bridges that aren't normal. One's missing solder are all supposed to be missing solder. Just had to heat it up again because it's, I don't know why. Alright, turn that off, turn the preheater off. It's gonna bubble still for a little bit. Everything looks alright. Now, it just needs to be reflowed again. Cool. Like this is cool. I'll speed it up with my little fan. I like to use this little fan to speed things up. It's a tool. Tool is cool. Fan, little mini fan. I just want to cool the solder balls down enough to move the board off so that I can clean it. Honestly, might not even need cleaning. If it looks good, I'll just leave the flux because it's a perfect amount. It's a little much actually, but it's pretty much the perfect amount to get the layers back together. You don't want too much flux. Why is it not sticking? Interesting. I'm just gonna let it sit and cool down. Alright, everything looks dry. Solder balls are dry. We've still got a nice amount of flux. So we're gonna grab the top board, which is nice and clean. We're gonna look at it once more just to make sure something's going on down here that needs to be cleaned. And everything does look good. Just have a little bit of gunk on it. I'm gonna get off with the brush. The heater's off. You can see the balls are all nice and cooled down. So now I always start in this top left corner. And, oh, it's still warm. Make sure the balls were actually cooled down. Okay, they're not going to go anywhere. So you want to set that down. Get it as close as possible. Wow, that looks almost perfect. Come this way a little bit. I'm using the holes to line it up. These holes. You can look and see from the top if they're lined up perfectly. That one's lined up perfectly. That one's almost perfect. It's pretty much perfect. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. Then I look at the sides, make sure that it looks good, and it's sitting flush all the way around. Make sure the board's not super warped either. And that looks good. Everything looks to be in position. This circle's good. That circle's pretty much good. It doesn't have to be 100% because it is going to correct itself with surface tension as long as it's 99% perfect, which it really looks like it is. So you don't want to mess with it too much because then you're just gonna cause problems. So we're gonna heat this up and then I'm gonna come back and we'll test the board. All right, can we see everything? All right, so I heated up. I did end up having to push down on the board a little bit, just a little, because it was a little warped, and then I held it and made sure all the sides were flat. And the first time it had no Wi-Fi. So I put it back on the heater and redid it, used some hot air, tapped it on all four sides to make sure that it was flowed, and then I pushed around it again, made sure that it was, all points were touching. And one of the sides was a little bit higher, so the board is a little warped, so you can technically use spacers. But I was like, all right, I'll try this one more time. I held it down with the tweezers, let it cool down, and it seems to be better, so let's try it. It doesn't have a gap anymore, so that's good. So what we're looking for is, the phone came in with no cellular, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, so we want to make sure that everything functions. We wanted to make sure this phone doesn't restart, obviously, by itself. We want to make sure Wi-Fi works and has good signal, and also picks up 5G and 2G, 2.4G. And we want to make sure it has the IMEI, which it does. And because, well, I did have to restore it the first time that I fixed it anyways to get the IMEI back. And I'll have to restore it again because I restored it without the Face ID plugged in, the module. And then, so because it was just in the jig, so when you do that, it will deactivate Face ID. So I do have to restore it once more. Modem firmware is there, IMEI is there. It brings up the IMEI. And Wi-Fi's working. It's picking up 5 and 2.4, and it's got a really good signal. The antennas are plugged in, so that looks good. Everything that we were supposed to fix is fixed. The phone is functioning like it should. The only thing left to do is solder on a new 5G antenna, clean the board up a little bit, put it back together, and just do some final tests. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I do want to test it with a SIM card. I guess I can do that while it's on camera. Make sure the SIM tray might not stay plugged in, actually. Yeah, it's not gonna stand. But as long as you know that it's pulling up the IMEI like that, it's saying no SIM, it should read a SIM. It's always good to double check, and I will double check. I have to find out what carrier this phone is, though. All right, thank you. Hope you liked the video. Bye.